Welcome to the Inbound Studio. Today we're talking to Tommy and Codie Oliver, co-creators of the hit docu-series Black Love on OWN. Codie, you were director of the series and produced by Confluence Films, which Tommy, you are founder of, correct? And a couple in real life as part of all of this.
This is true.
Cool. So I actually want to start with Confluence Films because I feel like one of the descriptions that I found in all of this was championing projects that are inclusive and celebrate the human experience. And I just want to understand, like, why? How did you land upon that mission, and what does that mean for you?
It means telling stories that oftentimes don't get told and helping people to tell those stories who don't often get enough opportunities to tell those stories. And so for me, it's all about just working with good people and using the platform that we are fortunate enough to have to actually make the world a little bit better.
And how are you finding those stories?
It depends. Part of it is sort of working with good people and finding the stories that they're passionate about. Sometimes it's, an inspiration of where we've grown up or what we're doing or what's happening in the world. And so it's really just about the things that sort of define us as humans and digging into that experience and sort of showing that shared sense of humanity.
And what was the impetus for Black Love, and how did that come about in all of this?
Sure. So Black Love started as just a nugget of an idea that I had 10 years ago, single, and there was a narrative in the media of a Black marriage crisis, that Black people weren't getting married as often or staying married as long as other ethnicities, and that Black women are the least desirable. It was just a lot, right? And especially as a single woman, my parents were divorced. They tell you if your parents were divorced, you're more likely to get divorced. I mean, it's just what's the point? And so then at the same time, the Obamas were elected into office. I mean, this was that long ago. And everyone's going, oh my God, they're beautiful, they're Black love, and their marriage goals, all of that. And it was obvious that we just needed a place to look. We just needed to see positive stories. And so when we met, we immediately talked about the idea, and he liked it as well. And also as us dating. So we dated very briefly, got engaged very quickly, and then got married. So in that short period, he hadn't, growing up, he hadn't seen his parents together. My parents were divorced. So it was clear that for us, talking to married couples would be beneficial. Not just for to capture love stories, which, has its own purpose, but just us embarking on this journey together, really just asking people what does it take? What do you do when that person gets on your nerves? Those basic questions to some of the bigger ones. It just was going to be really important for us.
But that has to be intimidating to do that while working together, freshly married, to create, that's a lot of new happening all at once. So, how do you navigate? I am one of those people that's I don't think I could work with a significant other. That's just too much. So how do you navigate that relationship in the context of telling relationship stories?
I'll say this. I'll say, for one, I don't know that the navigating even started till a month ago. We started doing it while we were engaged. Right? So it was more of just the need and the desire to do it, to tell the stories, and what that benefit would be for us personally, for our relationship, for the greater audience of whoever watches it. So we didn't ever realistically say can we handle working together and being together. I don't remember really having that conversation.
Sort of. Before you quit your job, you were worried about whether or not we could.
Yeah. And then what happened?
And then you quit your job, and then we were okay for a bit, and then we were less okay for a bit, and then we were okay for a bit.
Right, it's the highs and lows of...
And then we fought today, and we'll be okay tomorrow.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard. It's hard for us. For me. I know it's not, he doesn't think it's hard.
In all of this, it's about... you're learning something about your own relationship with each other. You're talking about couples and these romantic relationships. But did you learn anything unexpected, maybe just about like human being relationships and relationships with just like one person to another that you maybe was a surprising revelation?
I mean, I will say this, we're constantly learning. Like every couple is different. Each individual within that couple is different. So, you know, and I always say this, like we don't judge our couples because their life experience leading them to that moment is so different from person to person and then from us that it's like there's always something to learn.
Yeah.
So that's just the state of things, and if there wasn't, then I don't think we'd have a show. But lessons, we've both taken lessons from couples that aren't necessarily the same because it's whatever we need, right? And also what I know he needs for me to learn, right? And vice versa. And so one perspective that I found interesting was a couple that's been married 8 years, and the wife described marriage as self-love for two. I make a cup of coffee, I make you a cup of coffee. And that's like a very small example, but I know it's very important to him that I look at our marriage that way. And so that stuck with me, to just look at it that way.
Did you learn surprising things about your business relationship with each other that were maybe you hoped to learn or were unexpected to learn?
I would argue no, but mostly because we don't really talk to a lot of couples that work together.
Well, I think we learned about our business relationship through doing business together.
Right.
And so
Through
less
the
so
doing.
than learning from the couples. And so we've been shooting these interviews for the majority of the time we've known each other. We've been shooting these interviews from when we were engaged through being newlyweds, now less so, and it's been, 3 out of our 4 years together. And so we've learned how to deal with each other at every stage. And our lives they've changed over those 4 years. You know, from being single, then married, to having a kid, to growing a company, to all of these different things. And so we need to constantly adapt and learn and figure out how to support the other person and figure out how to just help each other in the ways in which they want to be helped, which is difficult sometimes because, and a lot of times we help people in the ways that we want to be helped, which isn't oftentimes the right way for other people.
I feel like work-life balance is like a buzz term in general, but probably takes on an even different meaning when you are working together 24/7 and living together and living life together and all of these things. So what does that look like for you? Like, do you have like on switches and off switches for talking about work or not talking about work, or talking about your relationship with your marriage relationship with each other, and then when you're at work you don't talk, like, what does that look like for you guys? And is it the same for both of you?
It's not the same for both of us. I mean, at this point, my life is 98% work and family. And that's it. And so it's work, my wife, my kid, and our kid.
What's the other two?
The infrequent thing, like, maybe a drink here or there, or a lunch or whatever it may be. But it's really just those things. It's just work and family. And I think for me, like, I try to, like, once we're at home, particularly once it gets late, it's like, I don't want to talk about business. And so, which is, like, I always think about business. I'm very much sort of business. But for me, my relationship, my wife, and my kid, they're more important than business. And they're more important than the company. They're more important than sort of everything else. And so I try to nurture that time and try to be, what?
Nothing.
Okay. Doesn't always work because it takes two to sort of have a space where you're not talking about stuff.
Did you just throw me under the bus?
Slightly.
I mean, that's true. So I would also say personality-wise, he's much easier for him to like separate things. Just be like, this time has passed, da 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 da. I mean, I would say we definitely need that, or I need to do that more. And the reality is, you're talking to us at a point where like we're growing so many things this second.
Right.
The show, we started shooting, a year after we met, literally like 1 year after we met, which was 2014, and we've been shooting it ever since. And we, licensed it to own in 2016, and it aired in 2017, and things have just been growing from then. And then we had a baby in the middle of that.
And you're growing him.
Right. And so it's like, we're constantly in flux, and it's hard sometimes to turn it off. And not because it's like all I want to do is talk about work. It's like there's so many things moving and happening that it's like, hey, you didn't answer this question at noon, and now it's 9 p.m. and I need an answer, you know. So
and
I think,
like, well, you should have asked me at 5 or 6, and so
right.
that's what
So
you
our
should have
approach
done
is just
versus,
different.
oh well, I didn't ask you earlier, so it's 9 o'clock and we're here now, so we can talk about it. And I'm like, no. Or I'll get mad because you actually asked me.
Which isn't helpful either, because then it still doesn't get answered, right?
Well, ask me tomorrow at 10 a.m. or remember to ask me at 5 p.m. the day of.
So it's just like anybody else's working
Right,
relationships with each
exactly.
other. Sometimes you get an email at midnight, you're like, I'm going to answer that when I wake up. And
maybe that's
deal
what I
with it
should
then.
do. I won't bring it up. I'll just write an email.
There you go. That's
perfectly.
Will that help?
Absolutely.
All right, I'll
Kids
do
are
that.
pick and
But will
choose.
you answer it? Because I don't think you'll answer. It'll be the next day.
That night, absolutely.
No,
There's
no,
way I'm
in
not
general. You ignore a lot of emails, friend.
I get a lot of
You do.
emails.
All right, you heard it here. He's not, this isn't changing.
Let's circle back a little bit to the show and perhaps the growth and everything that you talked about. When you first set out to do this, I believe the idea was a documentary film, correct? And then it turned into a series, and now it's turning into a second season of that series. So
And more.
and more. What were your initial goals, and have they changed throughout this process for the the output and the goals for like what you want the audience to take away?
I would say our initial goals remain the same. The reason we switched from documentary to docu-series was simply because we had so much footage and so many robust stories that it was like there's no way we can do any of it justice in 90 minutes. Like, what are we even trying to say?
Because we looked up and we had 45 interviews.
Yeah.
And so to try to compress that into
90 minutes was like, what is that?
Yeah.
And so our goals didn't change in that our goal was to, I guess, first and foremost, like create a place where Black love stories lived, because there was enough out in the media that was saying that they don't exist, right? So that was sort of the underlying mission. And then to just really talk about what it takes to make a relationship work for the long haul, and show diverse perspectives on that. And I mean that's the goal throughout, and for ultimately it to be universal. The stories are about marriage, you know what I mean, at different ages and different careers in different parts of the country, but like it doesn't have to be, you don't have to be Black to enjoy it,
right?
And so that was really important to us too, is that that we do tell these stories through a community that doesn't get to see themselves in that way, but also that we're able to show the world how universal all of it is,
because I think that's that balance of like diverse stories, but then the universal nature of anyone being able to appreciate them is like important across pick anything, that's so important, and it's sometimes hard to see the other side or hard to bridge those gaps. So are there nuances to your storytelling or your interview style that help you get at the heart of both of those things in a way that works?
That's a good question.
I would argue that for us, it's always been about answering the questions that we have about relationships.
Yeah.
And if we're doing that from an authentic place, as I guess we've been 30 plus in this process, but like as 30-something people, 30-something woman, 30-something man, like as long as we make sure that we as individuals are represented when we're asking these questions and when we're talking to couples, then we'll always get responses and conversation that are relatable to people on that journey. At any point in that journey, ideally, but people on that journey.
I agree. I also think that there are probably maybe three things that help us. One, the ways in which we interview. And so every single interview we've done thus far has been 4 people in the room. And so that's it.
There's more people in this room right now than when we sit down
and
do a Black love interview.
By far.
Okay.
And so it's literally the 2 of us on one side and then the couple on the other side. And so she's asking questions and I'm DP and cam up and AC and
lights,
gaffer and
sound,
all of that. And so part of it is just so that it's an intimate setting. And so it's really, hey, you've been married for 10 years, 20 years, 30 years. How do we get to where you are? How do we avoid some of the pitfalls that you've fallen into or that you've experienced? And
Or how do we get through them when they come?
correct. And then I also think Codie's just really good at asking those questions and really good at sort of digging into it and making people feel comfortable and helping them understand sort of the reason for why they're doing it.
I'm curious, and this is probably a little bit of just like my own genuine personal curiosity between the difference of like docu-series, and these are real, you're real people, these are real people you're talking to, and like reality television and relationships and diverse communities get like a bad rap through reality TV. And so how's it different, and like how do you combat that and the like sort of like the curiosity and the obvious like appetite for like that type of reality television in a way that's there's an appetite for this as well?
Sure.
So for like we're uninterested in reality TV. We're uninterested in salacious or just any of those sort of things. And so there are plenty of people who do it and do it well, and there's obviously an appetite for it, and so more power to them. That's not what we want to do. And so I think there is just as much of an appetite to see real people sort of in ways that we haven't seen them. And so like you mentioned with sort of in the media, so oftentimes relationships are misrepresented or poorly rendered. And so we see the highs, we see the lows, we miss all of what's in the middle. We see just the craziness. And so we never really understand what it takes to make it work, or we don't see those positive images. We see the divorce party, we see the sort of whatever it may be. And so for us, like Codie said, sort of seeing is believing, and we just want to capture and share those images. And so that's what we're doing. And so it's not even about, hey, here's our message. No, it's just, this is what it is. This is just merely sort of capturing what's there. There are couples that make it work. There are couples that have made it work for a long time, and they are committed to being committed. And so here it is for your observation. Take from it what you will.
And also the story that we try to tell at the end of the day is about relationships, right? How to heal them, how to make them better, how to make them happy. And when you mention reality TV, for example, like a lot of the times you're seeing the drama.
Yeah.
And then maybe the resolution, right? Or the resolution, at least for TV's sake, right? The beginning, middle, and end of the story. But like that very same drama that we may hear a couple men, we were fighting or whatever crazy thing that they tell us, we then go, and then what did you say to him that made him say that to you? and then what happened? Because we have a couple that we shot that we all keep watching our show, and you will see them, but that is on reality TV.
Yep.
And it was really fun and exciting to do that interview to me, because you do see the salacious parts.
Yep.
And to sit a couple down and really get the story of how they met. And in some cases they were talking about their experience on the show, but like really get the story of how they met and what their love looks like, and the argument, the things that they argue about, and there's the hurdles that they had. You're getting to see the human part of them and relating to that. And I just find that to be that sort of defines the difference between reality TV and us. We really spend time talking about like what makes your relationship work.
And also, you talked about how there's a beginning, middle, and end. In reality, there's a beginning, a middle, and there's a long time between that middle and the end. But in reality TV or on just TV or film or whatever, it's super fast.
Right.
It's super fast. And so you don't actually dig into the process to that resolution. You don't dig into the process of understanding what happened and then figuring out how you can get past it. And so for us, that's a lot of where we like to live in. And so it's like, okay, something went wrong, and then you got through it. How did you get through it? And sort of just reinforcing that.
Erica and Moran Campbell in season 1, they were a couple that he, a line that was of course used in commercial was when he said, I ended up hanging out with, they're married, and he's like, I ended up spending a lot of time with this other girl, that girl gets pregnant, of course, that hanger moment of like, oh my God, what happened? You know, we spent so much more time talking about like, so what did Erica say when you told her? And how did you all get from a place of, oh my God, this is crazy, you're about to, you know, you've got someone pregnant, to staying married and feeling like you're happy and healthy and whole. You're not just married for the sake of it and resenting each other.
Yeah.
You know, that's the time that we spend with them.
Yeah.
In addition to understanding how it happened in the first place.
Right, that too. How'd you get there? Why? What were you thinking? How did you know, you love your wife, why were you with this woman? And so we spend a lot more time with that than that one moment that I think would be the highlight of a reality TV show.
That is a skill. Like everything you've just talked about in terms of having those conversations, people, and getting there and getting that in depth, like that is, not everybody can do that. Not everybody can sit across the table from somebody and have that type of conversation. Some of it, I'm sure, is just natural, like either you have it or you don't, but how have you sort of developed that and learned that? And I guess even like what role does like mentorship or other people play in your growth as a filmmaker, an interviewer, a business person?
So one thing that entertains me is that I went to undergrad for broadcast journalism. And I worked at a 24-hour news network and I hated it. I really just hated the news cycle. And then I went to film school. And so it is, and I had never intended to make anything documentary, docu-series. It was always feature films, which is clearly not what's happening right now. And so what tickles me though, that now I'm like using both of my degrees. But so I'll say that's a part of it. Like the, you know, broadcast journalism, I mean, I spent 4 years studying, like interviewing people and telling stories in that way. But so I would say that is a part of it for me, but also honestly, just genuinely wanting to know the information. And like Tommy said, I think us creating an intimate environment for the interview helps a lot. And being able to look at another couple and say, no, seriously, I want to know how you got through that, because I don't know how we would get through it, but I want to know that we can. So they want to help. And one of the things I always try to, you know, just tell the world is that everybody in season 1, all of those couples, they did that without us having any sort of distribution or anything.
Right.
You know, they just did that because they wanted to help, told their stories, bared their souls. Viola Davis told us she had bad credit. You know what I mean? Like, just because they wanted to be able to help other people. And so I think it's about choosing the couples, and then I think it's about us, you know, making them feel comfortable and like, you know, you're looking into the eyes of two people who want your guidance, want your experiences.
I think a big part of it as well is the conversational nature of it. And so it's less about walking in with a checklist or walking in with a list of questions, and it's really about having a conversation. I'm sure you can have questions if you need to look to them, but it's really about listening to what they're saying and then responding and reacting to that in the moment. And so versus you're going in with a preconceived notion of what they should say or where you want the conversation to go, and then you wind up missing the real gems because you missed the follow-up question that was obvious because you were so focused on that next thing on your list.
Yeah. I think
you do that well.
Oh, thank you. Did you say me or her?
I'll ask you the next question on my list. No, but I mean, I guess a little bit to that point, and some of the other stuff that we talked about before, like because of the nature of the, you know, the relationships that you're talking to and the couples and everything, like for the larger audience, for the world and anybody paying attention, and even in other contexts outside of marriage, like, do you have takeaways of what can we all learn about the differences that exist within each other? Because I think, you know, a lot of what you're talking about is like, these are two people who are in a committed relationship, but there are inherent differences between you, no matter how much you love each other, no matter how, you know, how much you've been through, and what can we all sort of take away from being better friends, better coworkers, better anything, by like understanding and learning more about that aspect of relationships?
You want? Okay. I mean, I think that marriage kind of is like a microcosm for like the relationships with people that we love, right? I think that what people who are married articulate, in general, but also through our show, is, as Tommy often puts it, the commitment to being committed, right? You've made a choice to commit to this person for life. And so a lot of the times you're not happy with them or whatever it is. And so you have to, if you're committed, you have to figure out how to get to the next day. You have to figure out how to get through that argument, get past whatever is irritating you, big or small. And in relationships with people that we love, we have to do the same thing. Actually, what's funny is that over the course of our marriage, personal story, I had two good friends of mine that we were bickering. And the personality of these two friends was to just be like, if it's bothering me, I don't want to deal with it. I'm going to put it off. And I'm like, I'm married, right? I ain't got time to be putting off things that irritate me. We're going to talk about it. We're going to get through it and we're going to move on because we love each other. When you love each other, that's what you do. And to me, that's experiencing that with my friends who aren't married. So maybe that lesson hasn't gotten to them yet. But experiencing that with my friends and comparing it to the fights that I may have with him, when you love someone, you fix it, you figure it out. And sometimes that means you're going, I'm really sorry for that thing that you don't really feel like it was your fault, but that's what you do because you love that person. Yeah. And sometimes it's something else, but I think that that's really important. And yeah. So to me, that's what the marriage example can teach us about the relationships that we have outside of marriage.
I think one of the best things you can do for relationships, both friendly and romantic, is to work on yourself. And so the better you bring to either of those things, the better the relationship will be. And so the more self-aware you are, the happier you are, the more you practice self-love, hopefully the better those relationships will operate. And I think it's something that people oftentimes they ignore in both, again, regular relationships and romantic ones. And so they expect somebody else to bring their happiness, or they expect somebody else to all these sorts of things that it's not anybody else's responsibility. And so they can contribute to it, but it's still on you to the onus for who you are, for how you operate, and the better person that you are, the better that relationship will be.
And there's a lot of people we've seen, not couples we've interviewed, but we have a lot of conversations about relationships a lot, right? And there's a lot of people that don't believe that don't believe you're responsible for your happiness.
Yes.
They believe if you're in a relationship, that person should make you happy.
Yes.
And that's just...
It's dangerous, is what it is.
Good word. Good word.
That person can and should be
bring you joy
of that, and they should care about your happiness.
Right.
But your happiness is ultimately yours.
Right.
And yeah, it's yours.
All right, I want to ask a few, a little snappier.
Okay.
You can take as long as you want to answer, but they can also just be quicker. What inspires you? What is what drives you? What inspires you?
Connecting people.
Challenges, really. So I just like to figure out how to conquer stuff, figure out how to navigate whatever it may be, however big the mountain may be, and then you realize that, that's actually a really small hill. But that's what I like.
What advice would you give to your 15-year-old self?
Oof. Okay, that one made me... You want to go first?
So there's when I was 16 years old.
Sure, that's
I was on the cover of the Philadelphia Inquirer, and so there was this 3-page article, and one of the things that I said at the time was that failure was one day realizing you're not the person you could have become. And I stand by that.
So your advice is, you're right. Is that?
I was a real
Goodness
smart
gracious.
16-year-old.
It's a metaphor for a lot of things right now, okay? Oh, man.
What? What it really is you are accountable for your success and your happiness, and it's really that simple. And so it's not your parents, it's not your friends, it's not society, it's not the market, it's not anything. You are fully accountable for your success or failure.
Okay, seriously. So mine's a little bit more like emotional, personal.
Perfect.
I would probably tell my 15-year-old self that my parents' divorce was a good thing.
Do you want to say anything more about that?
I mean, I would just say it's certainly a defining moment in my life.
Yep.
But at that time, I was probably trying to figure out too many things about how to like get them back together, or like why do we have to have this separate family? Our separation within our family, and ultimately, it allowed me such a personal and deep relationship with each of my parents. That I don't know that I would have I wouldn't have gotten it at that point in life. I think most people get that when they're adults and they're seeing their parents as adults. When I was like 12, I saw my parents as like a man and a woman, not my mama and my daddy.
Yeah.
And that I think is a good thing for me.
Yeah.
Not for everybody.
What would you tell your 15-year-old self?
Yeah.
Me? I don't know. I'm asking you the questions. If you weren't doing this, making films, what would you be doing?
What?
I figured you had an answer.
Of course I do.
What is it?
What do you think?
Tech?
Yeah, something tech and tech business or something entrepreneurial.
What kind of tech?
It depends. Depends on when I'm not doing it. Am I not doing it currently? Am I not doing it 5 years ago? Am I not doing it 5 years from now? It really depends. But I'm most certainly a techie at heart, and I like the tech industry and like being around really smart people, and I like what the best tech allows for, which is oftentimes connectivity, and I just like being around cutting edge stuff.
Is there tech in your future?
There is. There's tech in our present.
I have no idea what I would be doing. Like, I really don't know. Maybe I would be like a therapist. I certainly thought about it. Right.
You kind of
I
are.
know. Slightly obvious. I don't know.
I mean, tech might be the answer to this, but do you have anything that's on your career bucket list?
So quiet. To keep making the sort of shit I want to make.
Fair enough.
Yeah, I have to agree. I always say I want to do what makes me happy till it doesn't anymore. Like, I just don't want to be in a position where I'm doing things that, like,
Because you have to.
Because I have to, right? And I also never thought I would be making a docu-series, let alone a docu-series about this thing that I'm so passionate about. So I kind of feel like that might be the bucket list, and everything else is just icing on the cake. Well, even if those metaphors don't go together. But, you know.
I got you. Is a feature film still on your sort of plate?
Definitely.
Plenty.
Yeah.
So our company is 1/3 unscripted, 1/3 scripted, 1/3 features. And so lots of stuff coming up.
Amazing. All right, final question. What does inbound mean to you?
Thomas?
Ladies first.
Oh, really?
Or you can throw it back and ask her what it means to her.
Yeah, let's start there.
Oh, no, that's not fair. You got to
That's a
answer.
tough.
It can be whatever comes to mind.
Okay, this might be a terrible, like a
It's-
weird
I promise
analogy,
it will
right?
not be a
But the
terrible
first thing I thought of, I used to play basketball. So I mean, I guess and I immediately thought of, like, you know, the boundaries, inbound, right?
Yep.
And I just thought, you know, taking the skills that I have to make an impact, right?
Yep.
Because on the court, that's what you're doing. You're using your skills, and but to make an impact. So that's what I think of.
That's a great answer.
It's a perfect answer.
You want to borrow it? You can borrow it.
You can't improve on perfection. You said it was perfect, so.
There you go. We'll end it there. It was a perfect answer. Thank you so much for sitting down with us and chatting. I really enjoyed it. I hope you did too. And thanks for being here.
Thank you so
Thanks
much.
for having us.
Thanks.